The Ukraine war was supposed to showcase Russia's military might and boost its global standing. Instead, it has revealed cracks in its defense strategy and inflicted severe damage on its economy. With mounting casualties, unsustainable military spending, and a crumbling infrastructure, the conflict has exposed the harsh reality behind Russia's ambitions. So, how did a war meant to strengthen a nation end up tearing it apart? Let's dive in. The effects of international sanctions. Putin has never been savvy with economic policies, but his savage invasion of Ukraine started the Russian army's demise. When Putin invaded Ukraine, he anticipated Kyiv to fall in days and secure a quick triumph. He faced persistent resistance on and off the battlefield. The Russian economy plummeted faster than Putin expected Kyiv to fall due to off-field resistance and international pressure. Russian economic activity fell 4.4% after the invasion. The ruble lost 40% of its value in days. Things kept happening after that. Western firms began leaving Russia in droves. Russian assets were blocked, energy exports were targeted, and the economy was isolated from global financial institutions. The broad international sanctions that enabled this aimed to impair Russia's ability to conduct war against Ukraine. They initially appeared successful. Of course, Russia's economy was ready to implode. Western critics called these sanctions devastating, debilitating, and unprecedented, but they didn't drag Russia down. Truth behind optimistic growth numbers. Russian economy showed surprising resiliency in 2023, allowing Putin to continue his hardline attitude. As expected, the Russian government boasted about the economy's 3.6% growth and avoiding a major recession in 2022. The military-industrial complex expansion drove most of this growth. After witnessing that the military saved the Russian economy from a deeper downturn, Putin likely made it the core of his economic plan. The IMF predicts 3.2% growth for the Russian economy in 2024, making this decision seem effective. This April 2024 prognosis was higher than the organization's January estimate of Russia's GDP growing to 2.6%. Even more surprising than the bullish growth estimate was the expectation that Russia would surpass some of the strongest Western economies in GDP growth. The IMF expects the U.S. to increase by 2.7%, France to 0.7%, the U.K. to 0.5%, and Germany by 0.2% in 2024. Remember that Russia has always looked better on paper than in reality. These apparent economic measurements often mask deeper vulnerabilities that can cause unexpected and severe upheaval, as history indicates. Thus, many analysts caution that Russia's extraordinary economic resiliency is misguided. Mark Sobel, U.S. chair of the official Monetary and Financial Institutions Forum, said Russia is hiding a long-term economic decline that will marginalize its worldwide presence. As expected, Putin is doubling down on his economic initiatives, believing that increasing militarization is the key to keeping power and influence. Let's examine the war economy and its primary pillars to see how they're causing the Russian army's downfall. Putin's war economy is based on one idea: smart public spending yields outcomes. Putin seems to think enormous military spending is wise if it saves the economy from bankruptcy. Of course, this principle is old. Soviet-era misconceptions and delusions influenced this economic model for decades. Putin has never employed this model before the Ukraine incursion. Putin took power after the 1990s liberal reforms. Early in office, he seemed to support major economic restructuring and liberalization in Russia. Putin's choice of financial leaders shows only the weakest liberal leanings. Anton Siluanov, the finance minister, Elvira Nabiulina, the Bank of Russia governor, and Maxim Oreshkin, Putin's economic advisor, are not liberal. They are rational technocrats who value stability. Why does Putin preserve them? Putin is smart despite his many flaws. He recognizes that strong macroeconomic indices and economic stability are crucial to his influence. Several liberal economists like Alexei Kudrin and Anatoly Kobayev's trained him early on. How long can Putin maintain this fragile balance? He appears to be abandoning balance and pursuing a risky economic policy. Defense spending rises. The unwavering support of Putin's inner circle for Russia's special military operation in Ukraine has fueled a dangerous over-reliance on excessive military spending. This cult-like belief in the war's economic potential has driven defense expenditure to near Cold War-era Soviet levels. Currently, Russia allocates almost 7% of its GDP, about $140 billion, to defense. For comparison, Ukraine directs 37% of its GDP to defense during the conflict. Before the invasion, Russia's defense budget in 2021 was $65.91 billion, or 3.72% of GDP. This surged to $86.37 billion, 4.06% of GDP, in 2022. However, with roughly 25% of the federal budget classified, true war-related spending is likely much higher. This unsustainable level of military investment underscores the priorities of an autocratic regime focused on weapons over welfare, exemplifying the guns versus butter trade-off, where resources are diverted from civilian needs to military ambitions. Guns and butter, Russian economic strategy trade-offs. Government military investments include firearms. Civilian welfare is the butter. Thus, the guns versus butter argument involves trade-offs between these priorities. This strategy allows an autocratic country like Russia to prioritize guns above butter. No public scrutiny or opposition is expected. Putin hasn't openly abandoned butter, to his credit. He told his economists to balance weapons with butter. He said that despite boosting defense and security spending, we must meet our social commitments to the people and accomplish our national development goal in all areas, including social protection. He clarified that he meant education, healthcare, and veteran support. Naturally, Russia's central budget can't afford all this butter. This will fall to the market sector, which has thrived in Putin's Russia since Yegor Gaidar's reforms 3 decades ago. This interesting blend has led many commentators to infer that Russia is embracing a military Keynesianism-like economic policy. Military Keynesianism promotes government spending to boost economic growth and employment. Invest substantially in the military, and you'll boost economic activity, jobs, and technology. Russian military spending against. Does it sound familiar? Military Keynesianism is best illustrated by Nazi Germany or the Cold War U.S. Nazi Germany spent heavily on military preparation for a Slavic war. By 1940, Hitler's military spending was 40% of Germany's GDP, up from 8% in 1935. The German economy recovered from over 34% unemployment in 1933 to under 2% in 1939 due to this defense spending increase. By the 1960s, U.S. defense spending was close to 10% of GDP due to Cold War investments in defense and technology. There were still uncertainties regarding military Keynesianism's sustainability. Some experts believe that investing heavily in military production, which is high-tech, boosts the technology industry. The result? The civilian economy benefits from the following advancements. Others are convinced that military technology improvements have little to do with civilian life. They argue that the military-industrial complex steals personnel and other resources from the civilian economy, hurting it. Now it's evident that Putin is on the side that desperately believes military spending drives development. Putin's cabinet changes, which stunned the world, proved this. Internal conflict and Sergei Shoigu's firing. The firing of Sergei Shoigu as Russia's defense minister in May 2024 marked a turning point, though it wasn't unexpected given his failures during the Ukraine war. Shoigu, a loyal ally of Putin for decades, oversaw a disastrous invasion that fell short of its ambitious goals, with 19,000 troops and tens of thousands of vehicles unable to secure Kyiv. His inability to deliver a quick victory, coupled with rising casualties and corruption scandals, led to his removal. However, Shoigu was not completely sidelined. He was appointed Secretary of the Russian Federation Security Council, indicating his continued influence. The real focus lies on his replacement, Andrei Belyusov, an economist with no military background. Belyusov's appointment signals a shift in strategy as Putin pivots from a military campaign to a long-term economic struggle. This shift underscores Putin's recognition that the war cannot be won quickly. Instead, he is preparing for a prolonged conflict, raising concerns in Europe and Ukraine about his broader ambitions. Economically, Russia is trapped. The war fuels its limited growth, but exacerbates sanctions, labor shortages, and decaying infrastructure. Paradoxically, even victory in Ukraine could destabilize Russia, exposing it to economic and societal collapse. Economic effects on the military. Russia's economic struggles hinder its ability to restore or secure conquered territories, leaving it reliant on continuous conflict in Ukraine, the Baltic, and Europe. President Putin appointed an economist as defense minister to navigate the war-driven economy and optimize the military budget, which has ballooned to immense proportions. However, this focus on economic efficiency has exacerbated systemic issues in Russia's military. Currently, 70% of the military budget is spent on weapons production and procurement, while only 30% is allocated to the army, including a mere 20% for wages. Corruption further drains resources, with oligarchs like Sergei, CEO of Rostec Corporation, benefiting disproportionately. Chemezov's influence, bolstered by key allies like Denis Manturov, overshadows Defense Minister Belyusov's efforts to address inefficiency and corruption. Meanwhile, ordinary soldiers bear the brunt of these policies. Since the invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022, Russia has lost 5,020 troops, according to Ukraine's military. This staggering toll, nearly 0.4% of Russia's population, surpasses any conflict since World War II, underscoring the brutality of the war. Putin's strategy prioritizes sheer numbers over tactical planning, epitomized by the meat grinder approach of overwhelming enemy positions with waves of infantry. Contract soldiers are lured by monthly wages of $2,300 and mass mobilizations, such as the recruitment of 13,700 in August 2022 and 17,000 in December 2023, fill gaps left by devastating casualties. This relentless cycle of sacrifice reflects Putin's disregard for human life, treating soldiers as expendable resources in a war machine funded by a militarized economy. It highlights the tragic cost of his geopolitical ambitions. As we've seen, Putin's economic blunders are threatening Russia's military and stability. Failure to learn from past mistakes is costing Russia dearly, and without a major strategy change, the situation will worsen. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you found this analysis helpful. Thank you for watching.